Hi, I'm Josie Wright Callender, the author of Making Do, Growing Up Colored in the Jim Crow South During the Great Depression. And since coming out with this particular novel, um, I have a lot of thoughts of, how to launch my second volume, which is part two of this story. But in talking with my writers group, we were last the last meeting a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how wonderful it is to hear an author read their own works. And we've all been at those bookstore events and just loved it. So our leader, Steve Bullenberger, suggested that we read our works to each other because he said sometimes, it just sounds differently. And for me, I love audiobooks and at this time we're in the process of making one. Phyllis Kelly and I are producing an audiobook for volume one. But I had never read any of this story out loud to anyone. And so today I'm going to read from chapter 4, A Future and a Hope. The moon peeked from behind billowing clouds. Its light allowed Charles to make his way across the freshly harvested cornfields. His eyes were trained on the brightly lit tent. The sound of music could be heard faintly in the distance. As he drew closer, it seemed to rise like a wave swelling up to heaven. Sacred songs served many purposes for his people. During slavery times, they gave his people solace from the barbaric work conditions of slavery, as well as hope for future deliverance. His grandparents had told him that many of the songs were used to guide people to the Underground Railroad, to freedom in the North. The lyrics gave its listeners secret instructions. Charles could now make out a few words of the old gospel song the tent meeting group was singing. He blended his baritone with the chorus. The old songs flooded his soul with many memories. The old songs with lyrics about the glory of God and Zion and reaping harvests made his pulse quicken. And along with the excitement, he felt a tinge of remorse. He had not followed his mother's example about regularly attending church. The services had been a great part of his childhood. Daddy Ben had helped to build the church that sat a stone's throw from the tracks in a small clearing. But with the workload he had been juggling, Charles felt lucky when he was able to make it there for more than once a month. How vividly he remembered his mother standing in that little church with a straight back, eyes focused on her songbook. When Charles, the youngest, squirmed or tried to sit down, she squeezed his hand so tightly it hurt. "You's in the Lord's house. Stand up and honor him." He flinched, but he dared not pull away. Somehow, at even a very young age, Charles sensed that his mother needed to hold his hand just as much as she needed to be filled with the Lord's Spirit. When they finally sat down, Daddy Ben sat ramrod straight, and he was a very stern figure. Charles's oldest brother, Samuel, was almost a carbon copy of his father. He emulated Ben's posture for all of his 20 years of practice. Charles sat on the other side of Mother with Adam and Martha. Mama Edna anchored the family at the end of the pew. Ben's focus on the minister's message was something to behold. His eyes flashed with excitement. It told Charles that something marvelous was going to happen at any minute. It made him want to watch too. So those are the first 2 pages of chapter 4. And I didn't give you any context to this particular section, but this book is a coming-of-age book for young adults. And at this point in the story, Charles is on the cusp of making a very significant decision. And the church meeting was a catalyst to this decision. So until next time, I'll give you a little bit more um, information as to how we're doing in the progress of building the second volume and also the audiobook of volume one, which I read from. But in the meantime, if you'd like a book, we still are running the special. Check my description box. Please subscribe. Please share. Thank you.